Well, from music mogul to an inmate, Sean Diddy Combs is denied bail on charges of sexual racketeering.
TMZ has been following this case for months now, and Charles Lottie-Baudier is joining us to dive deeper into what is happening. Charles, I mean, shocking is an understatement when you hear the details of this case. What are your thoughts after hearing the indictment yesterday?
Good morning, Brian and Natalie. I got to tell you, my thoughts reading the 14-page indictment yesterday were that there are a lot of people in Hollywood who are probably worried about which Diddy parties they were at and what was going on. That's not to say that they were necessarily even involved in any of the things that are alleged by the U.S. Attorney's Office. But if you're at that party and it turns out that that's when he set up one of these freak-off, that it was going on in another room and you didn't know about it, there's a good chance that you're going to be called by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And certainly if you were involved, you would get a call because they're going to want to know everything you want to know and may even want you to be a witness. I just think, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this case, this case is going to touch and involve. And the feds have said that this remains an open investigation. There could be more charges for Diddy. There could be more charges for other people involved. And usually the way this works is once they find out other people are involved or were witnesses, they bring them in and they sort of lean on them, and it's sort of like, you're going to cooperate with us, or there's a possibility that you could face charges. So this is going to be a slow developing a case here because we're just getting started, and I don't see how this trial begins anytime before next year.
There are a lot of wild allegations in those documents that came out yesterday.
Lately, social media and YouTube have been buzzing with rumors about arrest warrants for Hollywood celebrities connected to Diddy. Yes, you heard that right, arrest warrants, Hollywood elites, and Diddy all mentioned together.
1,000 bottles of baby oil. What surprised you the most about what you read yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, that, Brian, was definitely an alarming graph of the indictment when you read that when they raided, I believe it was the Miami home, where they found 1,000 bottles of, and they said that these were items that were used at the freak-offs. There were also large amounts of drugs, they said. They said that the house, according to the feds, that was stocked for these parties that were going on. And then to read their description of how Diddy, as they say, lured women into joining these parties. And they say that he would meet them or lure them, get to know them, and lure them in thinking they would think that there was going to be a romantic relationship with him. And then it would turn out that they would be at these freak where they would be forced to have, or drugged and with male prostitutes that he was bringing in. And that's one of the counts that he's facing also, is the transportation of individuals for a purpose of prostitution. So really alarming allegations laid out in court. Diddy, of course, has pled not guilty to all of it. And then the real kicker for him at the end of the day was that the judge said, you will be held without bail. And that means however long it takes for this trial to begin, he will be in a federal detention facility in Brooklyn, and not a very nice one. In fact, a fairly notorious one. So you got to figure it. He wants out of there, and he wants out as soon as possible.
We're in this era right now, Charles, of men with power falling from grace in Hollywood. And when I think about Harvey Weinstein, that was an open secret in Hollywood for a very long time about what he was doing with victims. Was this also the case with P. Diddy?
The whole thing went viral after a YouTube video dropped with a headline that made people look twice. Joe Rogan reveals arrest warrants for Hollywood elites involved with Diddy. That's the kind of title that grabs attention. Who wouldn't click on that?
People kind of knew this was going on?
I will say this. There were always been whispers about his power and how he wielded that power. But I can't say I heard any whispers about these freaks, and it's really alarming. We were talking about it yesterday. One, these parties had a lot of individuals. In fact, the U.S. Attorney's Office says that the parties would sometimes go on for days. So there are a lot of individuals involved, and yet, and they say this has been going on for more than 10 years, and yet we didn't hear about that. So that means that all the people that were involved, according to the feds, that he managed to keep them all quiet, that nobody would speak about it. And that does sort of speak to the kind of power he wielded and the fear that people had of him. We're also talking about the fact that the beating of Cassie, which was captured on the hotel surveillance video, that was, what, 6 years ago. And
alleged when Combs
nobody knew about it. Nobody heard about it. Think about all the people that were at the hotel who may have known about it, people who saw the surveillance video and never spoke about it. And like you said, we're in an era where when things like that happen, people speak out about it. So the fact that no one did, and that it only took this, really Cassie's lawsuit before any of this started coming out, it does kind of speak to the power that he wielded, and that the fact that nobody wanted to cross him.
And Charles, what do you think happens next in this case? Members of Sean Combs' family have been ordered to give up their passports. He's currently in jail. What do you think happens from here?
Well, his attorneys, the first thing that's going to happen is today, his attorneys are going back into court. They have appealed the bail ruling. And like I said, I'm sure he wants out, and that's their first job right now is to get him out. They've offered a $50 million package for bail. That was rejected yesterday, but they're going to take another swing at it today. And then after that...
The video went viral right away, and for good reason. It had everything needed for an internet hit: big celebrity names, a touch of scandal, and a hint of conspiracy. It got over 1 million views in just a week, with tons of likes and a flood of comments as people rushed to find out which Hollywood names might be involved. But as the views climbed, something started to feel off.
Happens, look, he did surrender his passport to his lawyer. We should say the way his team put it out originally, they made it sound like he had turned it over to the authorities. He had turned over his passport back in April to his lawyer, as did his children and his mother. And their point was they wanted to make the case to the court that, look, we're cooperating here. He is not a flight risk. And they feel like the U.S. Attorney's Office undermined that by raiding his hotel on Monday night and arresting him when they say he was in New York because he was more than willing to surrender. In fact, the plan was for him to surrender on Tuesday, and then for some reason the feds decided to arrest him Monday night. Diddy's attorneys think they did that so that it would look like he wasn't cooperating, and then the judge would deny him bail, which, as it turns out, is what happened.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for your thoughts on this morning. You guys always have so much information behind the scenes there. It is 7:13 a.m. in Los Angeles. Thanks for waking up early with us.
Absolutely. We're up early every day.
With such big allegations, you'd think every major news outlet would be covering it, right? But this is where things start to take a twist.
Because my next guest just testified before a federal grand jury. He says he was in possession of a trove of digital evidence from Diddy's freak-offs and parties. His name is Courtney Burgess, and he says a friend gave him 11 flash drives that belonged to the late Kim Porter. And if you follow this story, you'll know that Kim Porter is Diddy's ex-girlfriend and the mother of 4 of his kids. On those drives, the witness says 8 videos featured 8 celebrities at Diddy freak-offs or parties, and that 6 were males, 2 were females. The drive also included a manuscript of an alleged Kim Porter memoir, a memoir that her 4 kids insist is fake. Courtney Burgess told his story on a podcast before he told the grand jury today, and after he told the grand jury, and I mean immediately after, he booked it over to my set, and he and his attorney talked to me. I should tell you that he was very limited in how much detail he could go into about his testimony. And because the 8 people in the videos, the 8 celebrities in the videos were allegedly victims, we know who they are, but we will not be naming them, famous or not. Here now is my conversation with Courtney Burgess and Ariel Mitchell, who's his attorney, beginning with the question of whether the participants in the video even knew they were being recorded. Were there any cameras in places where you'd assume privacy, like bathrooms?
Well, I've never been in this house, but the picture, yes. Yes. That's where it took place, yes.
It turns out the video wasn't what it seemed. In fact, it wasn't based on reality at all. It was pure speculation, a rumor that spiraled out of control. So let's break it down and see what's really happening.
You're aware of surreptitious cameras that were recording in private places like bathrooms.
I didn't see the cameras. You could tell how the person was angled. I knew that it was a camera there because I was there. You know, I wasn't there. I don't know if the person was too tall, he was holding it or whatever, but I wasn't there.
May I ask you this, Courtney? And Ariel, you can jump in on this as well, but I want to hear from Courtney first. Your home was raided by federal authorities, and I assume it is because of this material. Is that true?
I wouldn't say that. They just went to every one of them looking for me. They said, the paperwork said the 24th, that I had to be there the 28th, and then it was the 27th. I said, I can't make it there, that's tomorrow. So I don't know. From the look of it, it was 4 days.
And I want to be specific. When we talk about a raid, we're talking about when a subpoena is served for documents, a search warrant or an arrest warrant. In this situation, Mr. Burgess was not in any way, shape, or form had a search warrant or an arrest warrant issued for him. It was just them serving a subpoena. So when the federal government needs to serve a subpoena, they use the Marshal Service to come to all of your residences if you have more than one residence. So in this situation, they sent marshals to all of Mr. Burgess's residences, and that was somehow construed or understood or turned into a raid, but he did not face a raid. It was just to serve him the subpoena.
Ariel, do you believe that the subpoenas were issued and executed based on the federal authorities' knowledge that these flash drives existed and had this kind of compromising material?
I think it was based on statements that Mr. Burgess made in a prior interview.
And those statements include descriptions of what the witness says he saw on those tapes. So I asked him about that, and he answered.
First, let's look at the video itself. It was put together in a way that made it feel very believable. It opened with clips of Joe Rogan discussing Diddy's recent legal troubles on his podcast, and then cut to various news clips about Diddy's arrests, legal issues, and even search warrants executed at his properties, adding fuel to the fire.
But he could, given the limitations imposed on him after testifying before the grand jury. Out of those 8 videos, 8 celebrities, 6 men and 2 women, how many of those 8 celebrities were close to being underage or potentially underage?
2 males.
2 males. And of those 8 celebrities, how many of them were intoxicated or under the influence of drugs?
This is going to be all speculation. I just want to preface it by he wouldn't know if they were. Right.
Sure.
Appear to
Let
be.
me rephrase it.
Based on, yes.
Understand. Out of the 8 celebrities who were recorded having intimate relations with Sean Combs, how many of them appeared to be either inebriated or intoxicated or under the influence of drugs?
All of them. All of them.
Out of those 8, how many appear to be potentially victimized? How many might have been victimizing?
I think all, to be honest, all.
Were victims
They
or
victims.
were perpetrating?
Victims.
They were, all 8 were victimized,
Yeah,
meaning
victim.
this was happening to them and they were inebriated.
Right. Not knowing, I guess, how much proof it was in it, what they was doing.
And of those 8, how many seemed to be potentially minors?
2 to 3, possibly 3.
2 to 3. Also on the flash drives, Courtney, was what looked to be a manuscript written by, it appears to be a woman who had taken Kim Porter's private journals and had written a book. Is that accurate?
We don't know.
I don't
know how. Yeah.
I don't know how, who wrote it, put it together, but it was from her when I spoke to her.
They even added snippets from press conferences with Diddy's lawyers, federal prosecutors, and legal reps. It was an intense mix of real footage, carefully edited to make it seem like something major was about to happen. But here's the catch: there was never any mention of arrest warrants for other celebrities.
What you received on the flash drives, was it the completed book, or was it notes from Kim Porter that later were made into a book?
It was completed. It's only 60, only about 54 pages.
Sure, and in the beginning, it says, Kim made me promise that if something happened to her, I would make sure this book became public to the world. The way Sean moved, I knew that was a promise I would have to fulfill. Kim knew I was a woman of my word, and this book was going to make it to print. So it sounds like it is a woman who wrote up the notes from Kim Porter. Does that sound accurate?
It's how you read it, yes. I haven't even read the book.
Do you know who the woman is?
No.
And to be clear, he received it in its complete form. So I think just to make sure we have some clarity here, the manuscript that Mr. Burgess received was already in its complete form. It's not that he edited it or changed anything.
Got it.
He did give it to someone else who then edited it, but that's not how he received it.
Okay, so Ariel, did your client, Courtney, receive the book from the woman who seems to have written it, saying, I'm a woman of my word, and this book is going to make it to print?
I don't know if he received it from a man or a woman. He can answer that.
I received it from a man. I tell you, somebody she was dating.
Do you know if the notes from the book really were from Kim Porter?
It was, yes, because I spoke to her probably like 6 hours before I received it.
You spoke to Kim Porter?
Yes.
So Kim Porter.
Just saying hi.
Okay.
Just saying hi.
Okay, Ariel, go ahead and give me clarity on the timeline.
No, I'm trying to get him to provide clarity of, was there a conversation with her?
No, I was talking to the person, and he said, hold up, this is Courtney, be right here. Let me say something to him. He said, I know him, put me on speaker. Then that's how we end up speaking.
And then later, somebody else came and brought you the manuscript.
Right.
And the thumbnail, whoever made it knew exactly what they were doing. It showed images of Joe Rogan and even Jennifer Lopez looking like they were in handcuffs, being led away by federal agents. Of course, it wasn't real. The images were heavily edited, maybe even AI generated, to create a false impression. But with one look at that thumbnail, people couldn't resist clicking.